I've played a few wrestling games on the GameCube at this point. They've all been at least good, which is saying something about just how far game development had come since the NES days. This time I'm going to be checking out WWE WrestleMania 18. This game was released after I had stopped watching wrestling. It was released in 2002. I was getting ready to go to the Navy at this point. I really was not interested in what was going on with the GameCube anymore. It was just kind of a weird time for me since I had graduated high school, quit my job, and was just waiting to go off to boot camp. Like many of the games on the GameCube at this point, I had no idea that this thing existed. Now that I've started playing through all the wrestling games that I can find, yeah, let's give this a shot and just see what happens. So when I first started playing, I immediately looked for a career mode or a story mode or something like that, and there just isn't one in this game. There is a Path of Champions mode, and I thought that might have been something close to it, but no, it's really not. It's just basically a gauntlet match for you to try to get to one of the belts that you want. So, yeah, that was pretty disappointing. Then I saw the Battle of the Belts feature and was like, okay, maybe that's it, and no. So this game doesn't have a career mode, which is really disappointing, especially for the year 2002, when I thought that feature would have been standard for basically every wrestling game. Sadly, that just isn't the case. So, yeah, no career mode. Well, there is quite a bit to do in this. Not having that is kind of a problem. At least it is for me. It's just something I would have expected from, most games in the 2000s. Even in the late 90s, I would have expected it. This is more of a game that's in line with something from like the mid-90s. Not saying that's a bad thing, that's just kind of where my mind went when I started playing this. There is quite a bit to do in the game. There's a decent number of things that you can unlock. I'm not entirely sure if it's worth it at this point because there are better options out there, but back in 2002, this could have kept you entertained for a while. The two main game modes are fine for what they are. They kind of make me wish I was playing one of the SmackDown games or, No Mercy on the N64. All those match types that they have in this are great, but they don't lead to anything, and that's kind of a problem with this. You can do a lot of stuff, but if you're playing this by yourself, there's just no payoff for any of it. You just, win a match, eventually get a belt, and then move on to a different wrestler you want to play as. The roster is very good, for somebody that grew up watching WWF and a little bit of WCW and kind of learned about ECW a bit too late to really appreciate that promotion. It is cool to see all of these wrestlers in the game, or at least most of them in the game. It really made for one of the better rosters that I've seen in a wrestling game at this point. And granted, I haven't really played everything yet, so at this point, this one has the best roster out of all of them. WrestleMania 18 has got some pretty good controls. I didn't really have a huge issue with anything. You can do the moves pretty easily. There are counter options in this game. There's a lot going on. I really did enjoy it. That's not to say it's all good. I did have a few issues with, trying to do top rope moves. I don't know what it is, but Ukes seems to just have problems with letting your character climb both a cage and also climb a turnbuckle. Or at least I have problems with them when I'm playing their games. It just seems a little weird. Like, there are some things that I could do easier in real life than I can in a video game, and I don't know. That just seems to bother me a little bit. It felt like I was supposed to be playing this with 3 other people at times. It's really more of a party game, which fits in with what Nintendo usually like to do. So, yeah, if I had 2 or 3 friends, I most likely would have had way more fun with this than I did by just playing it by myself. WrestleMania 18 is a really good looking wrestling game. I don't think it looks as good as Legends of Wrestling 2, which was the last wrestling game I played. Overall, it is probably better, but there are certain things about it that I don't think are really that much improved from like the PS1 era. There are a few areas like the character models that I think, are really only minor graphical upgrades, and that's really the one thing that I was looking at where I'm like, yeah, this doesn't look as good as it probably could. So, yeah, the character models, I think it's the faces that throw me off. They look strange to me when you get a close up of them. When you're actually in the match, it doesn't really matter too much because you're not really focused on that. But when you see them in the ring entrances, they just look strange to me. Like they either weren't finished or they just didn't, put as much time into those as they did with the rest of the ring entrance. It's just a little odd to me. Getting back to the ring entrances, they all look very good. They're pretty close to what the wrestlers did when they would come into the ring at the time. It's just really cool to see this done in a video game because, that's usually one of my favorite things visually about all of these wrestling games is when they give them a really cool entrance. And I think they did a really good job here. All the move animations look pretty good. I didn't see anything that kind of bothered me at all. The ring looks nice. I like the fact that the ref is there, even though he doesn't really do anything. I don't even know if you can hit him. I didn't even try to do that, but I probably could if I really wanted to. I never really had a reason to hit the referee, I guess. That's what I should probably say. The visuals don't really detract from the gameplay at all, and that's really a great thing. You don't want like the camera messing up or anything like that. It always looks pretty good when you hit someone and when you do any of the moves in this game. It's just a very good looking game. I think it looks better than the first Legends of Wrestling game, and I think parts of it look better than the second one. And as I play through the other GameCube games, I'm sure the graphics are going to get better than this. Overall, I think it looks like an upgrade from something like SmackDown 2 or No Mercy, but there are just a few things in it where it doesn't look like they really put as much time as they probably could have into it. This game actually received above average reviews at the time, some of them even being good to great reviews. It's kind of surprising to see that at times, but yeah, that's kind of the state that video games were in the 2000s. A lot of the scores were between a 7 and an 8, that was considered to be above average back in 2002. The 4 that I looked at for this did not do that. Some of them gave it, between a 6 and a 7, or in one case, a little bit below a 6. That still was considered above average at the time. So the first publication I looked at was GamePro. They gave it a 3 out of 5. The user reviews gave it a little bit higher at a 3.2 out of 5. The biggest issue that they had was the sound and just trying to win a cage match. I completely agree with the cage matches, especially in like the early Ukes games. They just were absolutely annoying. You'd sit there and mash a button and your character would just, hang onto the cage and wait for your opponent to climb up over it and win, or run into the cage and knock you off. Game Informer gave the game a 6.5 out of 10, and then they had a second look at the game and dropped that down to a 5.75 out of 10. This second review score was actually the lowest score that the game received. Neither of the reviewers really liked the game that much. The biggest complaint that they had was a lack of a career mode. The second reviewer, or the second look reviewer, called the game a gigantic waste of time, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I kind of see where they're coming from. So GameSpot gave the thing a 7.6 out of 10. They also criticized the sound, but the reviewer liked the gameplay overall. In a review that was nearly as long-winded as one of my reviews, they said that the game was fun for wrestling fans who owned a GameCube. And since this was an exclusive to the GameCube, yeah, I can kind of see that, but whatever. It was just one of those weird lines that I latched onto when I was reading through this. IGN gave the game a 7 out of 10. The reviewer seemed to like the gameplay, but had issues with other parts of the game that were previously mentioned when I talked about the other reviewers. In the verdict for this game, they said the game does not continue the greatness that they experienced with No Mercy and WrestleMania on the N64. And yeah, I can see that. Like, when I was playing this, I definitely wanted to go back to some of the other games that I had played, especially some of the better ones. Going over these reviews, it seems clear that they were expecting something closer to what was offered on the N64. Just the lack of career mode, it really hurt this game in the reviewers' eyes. Well, it looks good, and it was easy to play. It just wasn't as good as what they had previously seen on Nintendo's home consoles. So I have this game complete in box, and there was one small thing that I thought was kind of funny on it. On the back of the game case is a picture of Hulk Hogan, and the caption reads, "All New Superstars." I just found that really amusing to see that on any video game, really. Because when I think of new superstars and new characters, I do not think of Hulk Hogan. I get that this was around the time that he was coming back as Hollywood Hulk, and he was going into WWE for the first time in a decade. But yeah, it kind of tickled me when I saw that. I was really expecting more from this game. The gameplay and the graphics are both good, but there are just some things missing that I'd come to expect from a wrestling game at this time. I really felt the same way about this game as I did with WWF Royal Rumble on the Dreamcast. Looks great, gameplay's solid, but there's just not a lot of there. It's not as bare bones as Royal Rumble was, but it's just missing something that would keep me playing it as a single player. This is more of a party game, and, well, that works on Nintendo, and it worked when you had 3 friends who wanted to play games with you. When I'm going back to play these now, it's kind of a problem. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.